Karen Whitmore's perfectly manicured nails drummed against her Louis Vuitton purse as she surveyed the airplane cabin with the calculating gaze of a general inspecting troops. As president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association, she perfected the art of spotting violations from 50 paces. Today's target, seat 12A, which some inconsiderate woman had clearly stolen from her. "Excuse me," Karen announced loudly enough for half the cabin to hear, her voice carrying that particular pitch that make flight attendants everywhere reach for their emergency wine. "You're in my seat." The woman in 12A, a tired-looking mother with a sleeping toddler on her lap, looked up with confusion. "I'm sorry, but this is seat 12A, my boarding pass." "I don't care what your boarding pass says," Karen interrupted, her volume increasing with each word. "I specifically requested an aisle seat when I made my reservation 3 months ago. I have a medical condition that requires immediate bathroom access, and as a Platinum Elite member, I should have priority seating." The mother shifted uncomfortably, careful not to wake her child. "Ma'am, I have a confirmed seat assignment. Maybe you could check with the flight attendant." Karen's eyes narrowed to slits. This was exactly the kind of entitled behavior she dealt with daily in her HOA. People thinking rules didn't apply to them, trying to take advantage of her good nature. "Well, not today." "Listen here," Karen said, leaning down so close the woman could smell her aggressive perfume. "I pay my taxes, I follow the rules, and I expect the same courtesy in return. I've been flying this airline for 15 years, and I know my rights." A flight attendant approached with the practiced smile of someone who'd seen this exact scenario play out 1,000 times. "Is there a problem here?" "Yes, there most certainly is," Karen declared, straightening to her full 5'4" height. "This woman has stolen my seat, and I demand immediate action. As HOA president of one of the most prestigious communities in the state, I'm accustomed to a certain level of service." The flight attendant checked both boarding passes with the patience of a saint. "Ma'am, you're actually assigned to seat 12C, the middle seat. This passenger is correctly seated in 12A." Karen's face cycled through several shades of red before settling on a particularly alarming crimson. "That's impossible. I specifically said aisle when I booked. Your system must have made an error." "I understand your frustration," the flight attendant said diplomatically, "but the seat assignments are correct. However, I'd be happy to see if anyone would be willing to switch with you." Karen glanced at the middle seat between the mother and a large man who appeared to be settling in for a long nap. The thought of being sandwiched between them for 4 hours made her skin crawl. This was unacceptable. As someone who controlled a $2.3 million HOA budget and commanded respect from 847 homeowners, she wasn't about to be defeated by airline incompetence. "Fine," she said with a smile that promised trouble. "But this isn't over." When Karen returned from the bathroom, she noticed something that made her blood pressure spike to dangerous levels. The mother in 12A had reclined her seat slightly, reducing Karen's already minimal legroom by what appeared to be approximately 2 inches. "Absolutely not," Karen said loudly, stopping in the aisle. "Put that seat back up immediately." The mother looked confused. "I'm sorry. Your seat. Put it upright. You're invading my personal space, which is essentially trespassing." Karen's voice carried the authority of someone who'd issued 347 HOA violations in the past year alone. "Ma'am, passengers are allowed to recline their seats," the mother said quietly, clearly hoping to avoid another scene. But Karen was beyond reasoning now. The familiar red mist of righteous indignation clouded her vision, the same feeling she got when she spotted Christmas decorations still up on January 2nd, or discovered unauthorized garden gnomes in violation of Section 4.7 of the Community Guidelines. "I don't care what you think you're allowed to do," Karen declared, her voice now reaching glass-shattering frequencies. "I'm claustrophobic, and your actions are triggering a medical emergency." She began breathing heavily and fanning herself dramatically, causing the flight attendant to rush over with obvious concern. "Are you all right, ma'am? Do you need medical assistance?" Karen saw her opportunity and seized it. "I'm having a panic attack because of the hostile environment created by these passengers. I need this woman removed from her seat immediately, or I'll be forced to file a formal complaint with the FAA about unsafe conditions. The cabin had gone completely silent now. Even the usual sounds of engines and air circulation seemed muted as every passenger strained to hear the resolution of what had become the most entertaining in-flight drama in recent memory. The flight attendant looked trapped between professional courtesy and the growing realization that she was dealing with someone completely immune to logic. "Ma'am, I cannot remove a passenger from their assigned seat unless—" "Then I demand to speak to the captain," Karen interrupted. "As a tax-paying citizen and frequent flyer, I have rights that are being violated. This is worse than the time my neighbor tried to install an unauthorized mailbox color." The man in the window seat couldn't help himself. Did she just compare airplane seating to mailbox colors? A ripple of barely suppressed laughter ran through the nearby passengers. Karen spun around, her face now approaching a shade of purple that would have been impressive if it weren't so alarming. "You people have no idea what you're dealing with," she said, her voice dropping to an ominous whisper. "I've ruined HOA board members for lesser infractions than this. I've had people's lawns measured with rulers and their paint samples professionally analyzed. You think I can't handle a simple airplane full of rule breakers?" The flight attendant made a decision that would be talked about in airline break rooms for months to come. She picked up the intercom phone and made an announcement that would change everything. But as Karen watched the flight attendant's lips move, forming words that would seal her fate, she couldn't help but smile. After all, she'd been fighting battles like this her entire life, and Karen Whitmore never backed down from a fight. The question was, would her enemies be prepared for what came next? Karen squeezed into seat 12C with the grace of a rhinoceros in a china shop, making sure to bump both her neighbors repeatedly while arranging her belongings. She perfected this technique during countless HOA meetings, where strategic discomfort had proven more effective than parliamentary procedure. Some people, she announced to no one in particular, have absolutely no consideration for others. The mother in 12A was now fully awake thanks to Karen's theatrical settling-in process, her toddler stirring restlessly. Karen smiled with satisfaction. If she couldn't have the aisle seat, at least she could make sure everyone understood the grave injustice being perpetrated. 20 minutes into the flight, Karen pressed her call button for the third time. When the increasingly frazzled flight attendant appeared, Karen launched into phase 2 of her campaign. "I need to speak to your supervisor immediately," she declared. "The passenger in 12A is creating a hostile environment." "I'm sorry." The flight attendant glanced at the mother, who was quietly reading while her child slept peacefully. "She's deliberately preventing me from accessing the aisle," Karen continued, her voice rising. "As someone with a medical condition, this constitutes discrimination under the Americans with Disabilities Act. I'm documenting everything for my attorney." She pulled out her phone and began taking photos of her cramped middle seat, making sure to capture what she considered evidence of her suffering. The flash went off repeatedly, causing other passengers to turn and stare. "Ma'am, please put your phone away," the flight attendant said firmly. "You're disturbing other passengers." "I'm protecting my legal rights," Karen shot back. "And I want it noted that your staff is being completely unhelpful. Do you realize I could buy and sell this entire airline? I've handled budgets larger than your annual salary." The man in the window seat finally opened his eyes and turned to Karen with the expression of someone whose patience had officially expired. "Lady, some of us are trying to sleep. Could you keep it down?" Karen's jaw dropped. The audacity. Here she was, a respected community leader, being told to quiet down by some random passenger who probably couldn't even afford to live in her neighborhood. "Excuse me," she snapped. "I'm having a legitimate conversation with the flight crew about the service failures I'm experiencing. If you don't like it, maybe you should have booked first class. Maybe you should have booked a private jet," he replied dryly, closing his eyes again. The entire exchange had been loud enough that passengers several rows away were now craning their necks to watch the drama unfold. Karen felt a familiar surge of adrenaline, the same feeling she got when addressing HOA violators who dared to paint their shutters unauthorized colors or plant flowers in non-approved species. She stood up abruptly, forcing the mother to move her legs aside. "I'm going to the bathroom," she announced, as if this were a major news event requiring public notification. But as she made her way down the aisle, Karen's mind was already working on her next move. These people had no idea who they were dealing with. She'd turned property value enforcement into an art form, and she wasn't about to let a bunch of airline passengers think they could push around Karen Whitmore.